Potential personal harm. As suggested earlier, helping is sometimes dangerous, and in many real-life emergencies, the fear of being harmed may be a major deterrent to intervention. In the Kitty Genovese incident, for instance, it is possible that many of the bystanders hesitated to help because rushing to her aid might have meant putting their own lives on the line. The impact of these kinds of fears is clearly illustrated in a field experiment conducted in the New York subway. In this experiment, one Confederate asked a subway rider, the participant, for directions. Another Confederate interrupted and gave obviously incorrect information. The behavior of interest was whether people would help the person asking for directions by providing the correct information. Fear of harm was manipulated by varying the behavior of the Confederate who gave the incorrect information. Some participants had seen him physically intimidate another person, also a Confederate, who had apparently tripped over him. Others had heard him shout verbal abuse without physical threats, and in a control condition, the tripping incident passed with no response from him. As you might expect, even though it was easy to help in this situation, the potential costs associated with contradicting the possibly abusive Confederate strongly influenced people's behavior. Only 16% of the people who witnessed threats of physical violence helped, and 28% of those who heard the verbal abuse helped. By contrast, 50% of the people in the control condition helped by giving the correct directions. Obviously, self-interest in avoiding harm influenced whether these people behaved in a helpful manner. In addition, research has shown that less life-threatening but potentially painful risks, e.g., receiving electric shocks, can make people reluctant to help. Not surprisingly, people are less likely to help another person when helping means that they will suffer some discomfort or harm themselves. Unpleasant emotional consequences. Helping someone may sound like a very desirable activity, but it can often involve unpleasant experiences. Helping opportunities are unusual and unexpected events, and when people encounter them, they often experience a range of insecurities. If people are asked to do something unfamiliar, they may feel some self-doubt, potential embarrassment, and concern about failing others. These are all potential costs for helping, and the stronger these feelings, the less likely people are to offer assistance. In emergencies, victims are often physically injured or disfigured. Intervention may require that the bystander come in contact with blood and other bodily fluids. Clearly, this cost could make even the most well-intentioned bystander reticent to become involved. Experiments have directly examined this possibility. The setting of one study was in a train on the Philadelphia subway. The victim, a Confederate of the experimenter, quietly collapsed to the floor and stared at the ceiling, thus avoiding eye contact with bystanders. For half the trials, as the victim fell, a trickle of blood ran down his chin. For the other half, there was no blood. Because many people have an aversion to blood, the researchers reasoned that the presence of blood would increase the unpleasantness, i.e. costs, associated with providing help. As expected, bystanders were not only slower to help the bloody than the non-bloody victim, they also helped the bloody victim less often overall, 65% versus 95%. Personal costs for helping in the form of anticipated negative experiences can readily outweigh even the serious need of a victim. This study was conducted over 30 years ago. It is very likely that visible bleeding would have an even stronger impact on helping today. The fact that AIDS can be transmitted through contact with blood would dramatically increase the potential costs for helping. Indeed, in some recent instances, even emergency medical personnel have refused to help seriously injured and bleeding people because they fear these people might carry the AIDS virus. Stigma by association. Costs for helping can also involve harm to one's reputation. The mere association of people with members of stigmatized groups can lead them to be stigmatized as well. For example, heterosexual people who are seen interacting with homosexual men may be denigrated by others who have homophobic attitudes, and simply being seen near an obese person can result in a person being evaluated more negatively. These types of costs for helping can strongly affect people's decisions about whether to help others. People who chose not to volunteer for an AIDS organization reported that fear of stigmatization was a primary reason, and among those who did volunteer, burnout was directly related to how much stigmatization they experienced for helping. Rewards for helping. According to the cost-reward framework, rewards should increase helping. Although a considerable amount of research has focused on the effects of costs for helping, relatively few studies have examined the effects of rewards. As anyone who has received an allowance from their parents would suspect, monetary rewards increase helping. Also, people are more likely to help if they are led to believe that helping will enhance their mood, and the promise of other forms of personal gain also increases helping. People are more likely to help when helping is framed as an opportunity for skill development, a benefit for the helper, than as an interruption, a cost for the helper. Social rewards are also very important. People are more likely to donate their time and money to charity if they believe it will increase their popularity, bring them recognition from others, or help them maintain their good reputation and be rewarded by others. Even a simple thank you can be effective. In an experiment by McGovern, Ditzian, and Taylor, 1975, a female Confederate asked male participants to take an electrical shock for her. If the participants agreed, she said nothing in a control condition, but responded with thank you in a reinforcement condition. After the initial shock trial, participants who had been reinforced continued to be more helpful throughout the experiment than did participants who were not reinforced. Reinforcement from the person being helped can also come indirectly. For example, the helper may experience personal gratification when she or he sees the situation improve for the person in need. This also increases helping. People are more helpful when they can perceive that their help is actually improving the other person's condition. Rewarding moods. When we discussed factors affecting whether or not one notices an event, we noted that being in a good mood seems to make one more attentive to the social situation, leading to a greater likelihood of helping. However, being in a good mood also leads to helping when people are made aware of another's need, such as when they are asked directly for assistance. This latter finding suggests at least two other routes related to costs and rewards by which good moods may promote helping. First, being in a good mood appears to make one think more about good things, such as rewards, than about bad things, such as punishments, approach versus avoidance behaviors. Alice Eisen and her colleagues have found that individuals who were in a good mood were more likely to think about positive things, to retrieve more positive thoughts from memory, and to have a more positive outlook on life. Thus, people in good moods may think more about the rewards for helping and think less about the costs. Second, when people are in good moods, they may compare their own circumstances to those of people around them. If they feel an imbalance between their own good fortune and the situation of less fortunate others, they will be motivated to correct this inequality. One way of doing this is by helping others, and the reward for helping is in restoring a sense of fairness and balance. Thus far, we have examined the way that the emotional states and the situational context of a potential helper influence when people help. However, as we noted in Chapter 1, helping is an interpersonal act, and often there are implicit costs and rewards associated with helping different kinds of people. Therefore, in the next section, we consider how the bystander's relationship to the person in need can affect costs and rewards, and thus helping. Relationships to people in need. The nature of the relationship between a potential helper and the person in need can significantly alter the balance between costs and rewards. We consider 5 aspects of the relationship between persons in need and potential helpers: attraction, similarity, quality of the relationship, group membership, and racial characteristics. Attraction. Positive feelings about the person in need or interpersonal attraction also increase helping. This effect occurs whether the attraction is based on physical appearance, friendly behavior, or personal qualities. According to the cost-reward analysis, one reason why physical attractiveness promotes helping, particularly by members of the other sex, is because it increases potential rewards. For example, helping may provide an opportunity to initiate a relationship with an attractive person. Although this explanation fits with common sense and experience, it cannot completely account for these findings. Suppose you found a job application that was left accidentally in a phone booth and it needed to be mailed. The application included a picture of either a physically attractive or an unattractive woman. Would that person's attractiveness make a difference in whether you would mail the application? Even though helping, i.e., mailing the application, would be anonymous, and it would be highly improbable that you would ever meet the applicant? For a substantial number of people, the answer is yes. People help the attractive person about half of the time, but they help the unattractive person only about a third of the time. Interpersonal attraction can thus increase helping even when the rewards are not tangible. This is the halo effect. Similarity. We have all heard the saying, birds of a feather flock together. Our concern is, will these birds be helpful? Does similarity between a potential helper and a person in need influence the probability of helping? Several experiments have examined this issue, and similarity has been manipulated in various ways, including dress style, nationality, personality, and attitudes. The results are consistent. People are more likely to help others who are similar to themselves than they are to help those who are dissimilar. Why does similarity lead to more helping? One reason is that perceived similarity leads to interpersonal attraction, and people are likely to help others whom they like. Another reason may be a sense of connection. People are more helpful to others when those others are included within a person's conception of the self. Additionally, being with others who share our values, interests, and beliefs is much more pleasant than being with those who do not. People who are seen as dissimilar are typically perceived as unpredictable, holding different beliefs and values, and threatening. From a cost-reward perspective, therefore, the costs of simply being with similar others are lower, and the anticipated benefits are higher. There may also be special costs associated with not helping a person who is similar, such as greater shame or guilt. To summarize, the more similar the victim is to the bystander, the greater is the guilt cost for not helping, the less is the apprehension cost about how the other person will react, and perhaps the greater is the anticipated appreciation reward for helping. In Chapter 2, we discussed the possible biological basis for the similarity helping relationship. Based on cost-reward factors such as these, it is not surprising that people are particularly eager to help others who are more similar to themselves. Quality of relationship. The quality of a relationship that a person has with another person in need is a powerful determinant of helping. In general, people who feel stronger ties to specific others are more likely to offer them help, and people in deeper, closer, and more sustained relationships are more likely to help each other. For instance, people who desire a communal relationship, a long-term, close relationship with another person, experience elevated positive affect when they choose or even are required to help that person. In contrast, those who do not desire a continuing relationship react with negative affect when they are required to help. Shared group membership. Although similarity often refers to the correspondence of attitudes and traits between two individuals, and can vary by degree, e.g. 25%, 50%, or 75% similarity, shared group identity represents the all or none categorization of a person as a member of your own group or as a member of another group. As suggested by social identity theory and self-categorization theory, thinking of others in terms of group membership has a profound effect on the way people think about and act toward others. People remember more detailed information about members of their own group compared to members of other groups, think of them in more positive terms, evaluate them more favorably, and, relevant to our focus, are more generous in their allocation of resources to them. See Gardner and DeVideo, 2000. The effects of shared group membership go beyond the influence of perceived interpersonal similarity. Hornstein and his colleagues demonstrated that common identity, which may be based on shared group identity or common fate, gives rise to a sense of we-ness, which, in turn, leads to more positive behaviors, such as helping. As a consequence, people are more helpful in groups in which people's outcomes are more interdependent and their fates are tied together more intimately. Similarly, people become more helpful to other members of their group when they feel that their group is being threatened. For instance, Americans become substantially more helpful to one another, exhibiting significant increases in volunteering after the terrorist attacks on the United States on September 11, 2001. Also, appeals for assistance are more effective when people imply that the person asking for help is from the potential helper's group rather than from another group. In a direct test of the influence of group membership, DeVideo et al. 1997 found that inducing a common group identity between members of different laboratory groups increased helping toward others who were formerly perceived as outgroup members. The amount and kind of helping observed exceeded what could be accounted for by perceived similarity alone. There was some additional motivation to help by virtue of everyone being seen as members of the same group. Outside of the laboratory, Levine, Prosser, Evans, and Reacher, 2005, relied on existing intergroup rivalries between soccer fans in England to stage opportunities to help in-group or out-group members. To make group membership salient, the experimenters had participants complete a questionnaire about their team preferences. Then, as a continuing aspect of the cover story, participants were told that they would next go to a nearby building to view a videotape of a soccer match between their team and a rival team and to answer some questions about the game. On the way to the nearby building, participants encountered a jogger who had apparently slipped and injured his ankle. In one of their experiments, Levine et al. Found that bystanders were willing to help the injured stranger much more often when the victim wore the in-group team's shirt, 92% of the time, than when he wore a rival team's shirt, 30% of the time, or an unbranded sports shirt, 33% of the time. Note that the effect is due to the increase in help given to the injured in-group victim and not a reduction in help given to the fan of the competing team. In a second experiment, Levine et al. Emphasized a different kind of group identity of participants, their common group identity as football fans, rather than the separate identities of fans of different soccer clubs. In this study, participants were more likely to help the injured jogger when he was also perceived to be a soccer fan, regardless of whether his shirt identified him as a fan of the participant's team, 80% helping, or of a rival team, 70% helping, than when the victim did not appear to be a soccer fan, the unbranded sports shirt condition, 22% helping. Thus, group membership has a distinct impact on helping, with the primary distinction being whether the person in need shares the group identity that is salient to the participant at the time. Within the United States, making common group membership salient can also have substantial effects on interracial helping. In a field experiment conducted at the University of Delaware football stadium prior to a game between the University of Delaware and Westchester State University, black and white student interviewers wearing either a University of Delaware or Westchester State University hat approached white fans who wore clothes associated with either team. These fans were asked if they would be willing to be interviewed about their food preferences. White fans were significantly more cooperative with a black interviewer when they shared a superordinate university identity with one another, reflected in their clothing, than when they did not, 60% versus 38%. For white interviewers, with whom the white fans already shared racial group membership, the effect was much less pronounced, 43% versus 40%, and not significant. Group membership also alters how different forces determine helping. For instance, people are not only more helpful to in-group than to out-group members generally, but they are also more influenced in their decisions to help by in-group than by out-group members. Levine et al. 2002 found that the bystander effect, in which people are inhibited from helping when other bystanders are passive, occurs primarily when the other witnesses are members of the bystanders group. In addition, Simon, Sturmer, and Steffens 2000 found that different factors influence homosexuals and heterosexuals to volunteer for an AIDS service organization. Homosexuals were more willing to volunteer when their collective identity in terms of sexual orientation was high, an identity shared with a substantial portion of victims of AIDS, than when their identity as a unique individual was high. The pattern for heterosexuals was reversed. The researchers concluded that AIDS volunteerism emerged as a form of intra-group helping for homosexuals and as a form for inter-individual helping for heterosexuals. In subsequent research, Sturmer, Snyder, and Omoto 2005 further showed that when the common group identity with a person in need is salient, people develop an empathic bond with the person in need, see Chapter 4, and help regardless of how much they like him or her personally. What primarily matters is that they are members of the same group. In contrast, what matters most when people are from different groups is interpersonal attraction. People are more likely to help a member of a different group if they like that person more. Thus, shared group identity not only produces high levels of helping, but the decision to help under these conditions is based on different factors than helping within interpersonal relationships.